All right, and we should be live here. All right, so people tend to trickle in. Sometimes it fluctuates. I know December we had like 20 people here. It's crazy. There's just kind of a dice roll. This is the Unity Tulsa Game Developers meeting. My name is Chesney, aka ArchCon. That's my girlfriend there, Robin. She's also my 2D artist. I develop games in Unity. I've been doing so since 2018, but I'm not the best at it. I'm just the one that's willing to spend more of my time with the meetings and stuff like that. And then you said your name was Adam, and you said you were at Atlas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're graduating in August.
Yes. Yes.
And then I'm sorry, I forgot your name, but I know you're also in Atlas and graduating in August as well.
Yeah, my name is
Cameron.
I'm a full stack web developer at Atlas as well, and I should also graduate in August if everything goes well.
Nice. Yeah, we can hope so. I imagine so. You look like a smart guy. I think you can do it.
Thank you.
Yeah, we know game development takes a lot of our free time, especially if you've developed anything on your own so far. Usually I like these sections that we go through. Last month we had the Tulsa Game Jam, or the Global Game Jam that took place here in this room. Did you guys know about that or attend it?
I heard about it. I didn't get to attend.
I don't think I even heard of that.
Yeah, it's hard to get the word out these days. Social media is just flooded with everything. But yeah, it was lots of fun. Robin and I and several other people, we made like this dinosaur game. We like jumping around. We only had like 2.5 days to make a game, so we had the team rush everything. It was really cool. I had a great team there that was with it as well. Oh, and we got Yo from Daniel. He's create something interesting. Yeah, Daniel's the head honcho, kind of running the scenes of the Tulsa game developers. Where there's also a Tulsa game developers meeting every month as well. That kind of just broadens everything and allows a lot of networking in between everyone. So if you were to start your own project, that's where you can meet like a 3D designer and audio guys and stuff like that. That's where they kind of go and talk. They just kind of talk about everything video game development related, but this was more Unity focused. A lot more chill. Here we talk about Unity itself, and we talk about usually some people bring up some projects. We can talk and look about them, and I try to keep it educational. I can have some topics that we can talk about and share some resources on. And then I also like to keep it motivational too. I know it's very hard to motivate yourself to do your projects. I'm sure Atlas has lots of self-learning and stuff like that. I know how difficult that can be.
I think it's just intimidating. It's like, maybe I'll put a little off or try to feel more confident. Like that's the problem I have. I don't know if it's like that for everyone, but a lot of people. But
I get what you're saying. So I guess Atlas School is probably our greatest link here. Have you guys worked in Unity before? I'm assuming you have.
Yes, I have. I've done a couple projects.
Okay, so you've never launched a Unity program before?
I've never launched it once.
Okay, yeah. What experience do you have? So I'm sure you have like coding experience with web development, is that correct?
Oh yeah, I use a lot of Visual Studio Code to make websites. Like I use HTML to code it, CSS to like make everything look pretty. I'm trying to get better at JavaScript to add like more functionality to the website along with Python.
Yeah. What do you code in? You said JavaScript. Do you also code in C++ or anything?
We did it at first, but I mainly stick to Java and Python.
Okay. Yeah, I know Unity has some extensions where you can code in other languages, but by default it's in C#. But it's pretty easy to understand. I'm sure you can transition for that. Worst case scenario, ChatGPT is very good at transitioning coding languages from different stuff. So if you knew how to write it in Java, you can just put that into GPT and it can translate it to C# for you. Or whatever. I haven't coded anything else other than that. What difficulties have you guys had throughout this Atlas or Overton that you remember of?
Like just with like in projects or just
Anything in general? What do you guys think about this?
I think it's okay. It's a good program if you're like a very self-motivated learner and like very good at keeping track of your own time and keeping on task.
Yeah.
But if you have like any issues at all operating outside of a structure that's not of your own, or like if you have any issues at all operating outside of like a structured environment like a traditional school, it's not going to work well.
But the teachers and students there will help you, but you have to reach out to them. It's not like they do provide links to help you, but for the most part, you kind of got to figure out the answers on your own.
And there's not class time. We have like weekly meetups on campus with other people in our spec or in our specialization, and that's kind of like when the collaborative learning happens. And there are leads for each specialization, but it is all like self-done. Like it's all like you have to take the initiative to learn and go search for the like sources and materials that you need. They provide some pointers to get you in the right direction, and like of course the specialization leads will help you out if you need help. But it's very like it is up to you to get stuff done and to learn things at all times. You're not going to be lectured at ever.
So it's like a focused learn by yourself thing. So it kind of sends you in a direction, and you have to go and find everything out and come back to the school type.
Yeah,
They have these online checkers online where they'll ask you questions like, write a code that does this and it excludes this or excludes that, and then you submit the code through like GitHub, and then the checker will check to see if it of all the criteria.
So it's an automatic checker, like a robot.
Yeah.
Yeah, for some specs, like for the AR/VR specializations, we don't have we never use the automatic checker because
But then it's a lot harder.
yeah, there is no realistic way to push a Unity project to GitHub and have all of the files checked and have everybody's stuff be the same, just because there's a million different ways to do everything in Unity, and it's like having it in this like rigid framework that they were tried to do in the past just really was not working. And they've like redone a bunch of projects in the course over the last like year or two to like be a little bit more flexible and forgiving and kind of encourage just building things in Unity and learning the process. But yeah, it's all like project based. It's all like peer-to-peer learning. So you're like collaborating with other students instead of like sitting through a lecture and being told about stuff.
And for some assignments, you have to actually have another student review your work, just like to make sure you're on top of it. Because sometimes a checker can work, but sometimes it may have difficulty checking. So it's like, hey, you need to get someone else to make sure you're doing it right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've never had like a traditional school experience because like aside from elementary school, I was homeschooled, and then I got my GED, and I was in the workforce, and then a couple of years ago decided to go to school. So I've never been through like a traditional high school or college, and this was kind of like almost the next logical step because this is also not a traditional school.
Mm-hmm.
There are parts of me like that thinks I probably would do a little bit better with some structure, but that's just me personally. But like I said, it's if you're a very self-motivated learner and you're someone who's like the kind of person who's constantly going out and like researching and learning things on your own anyways, like Holberton or Atlas is like pretty much made for that kind of person.
Yeah, hopefully it teaches you lots of problem solving skills along the way.
Yeah, oh yeah.
that's mostly what coding is, problem solving.
Yes. Yeah, that is something that they start you out with in the beginning, is like, because you don't get in immediately into like the specializations of doing like web development or Unity development or whatever. Like they start you out with just like bash scripting and C and the basics of the Linux operating system and all this stuff. And like the first couple months are teaching you how to approach problems like a programmer and actually like work through them and solve them like on your own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I went through some web development stuff in high school, but they tend to lean your hand or hold your hand throughout the experience. Like, oh, here's the textbook, here's how you do this, and you just do it on the website and stuff like that. And even though we were coding in C++ plus plus and stuff like that, needless to say, I don't remember 99% of everything like that. I felt like I was just speeding through the entire thing. I felt like it was easy for me to understand at least, and so much so that I don't even remember what happened. I like to say I haven't coded in C++. No, I spent like 2 years in computer science or whatever that was. That was like in 2014-ish, 2013. So.
I feel the same way about C and Python because they've had us do projects in those as well. But like, if you sat me down and were like, "Hey, I need you to code a hello world in C," I'd be like, "I don't remember how to do that."
Things like print ad, quotation marks,
something like that. I'd figure it out eventually, but yeah.
Yeah, you know how to Google it now.
Yeah, exactly. I know how to Google it. So that's like 99% of programming. Just period is just knowing how to Google stuff. Yeah.
I'm a professional Google.
Yep.
There is some merit to that actually. Like doctors, they Google stuff all the time, but they know what to Google. They're not going on WebMD and being like, patient's stomach hurts. What could be the problem? You know, they're like, patient described pain in the lower left abdomen. Had this medical history. I'm like, okay, well, these are the 10 results. I don't think it's stomach cancer, so we can write that one out.
They don't always do that, but sometimes.
Okay, fair enough. So here's the real tough question. Now you guys are almost through to school. Do you feel like the school was worth it, or do you feel like you could have found the resources and you've learned everything online somewhere for free?
I think it was worth it because, like, if I do it for free, like just on my own time, like
you might never do that.
Yeah, I might just be like get distracted by something else because I'd also have to find a job at the time. I'd be like, I get distracted by the job and forget about coding. But with the school, they're like they give you assignments. You want to get a good grade, so even if they're very like lax on how you do it, like they're very hands off, like you still gotta try to complete as much as you can and get it right.
Yeah.
Depending on what point in my journey at Atlas you asked me that, the answer would be different. Because I've definitely had some very difficult times and some times where things worked out really well. I think overall, I would have to say that I think it was worth it because even though looking back, I think I probably would have benefited from a little bit more structure. Even if I had gone out to search out all this stuff on my own, like, I mean, every single project that we've done, like, I have gotten through it because of YouTube videos. But I never would have known even where to start without the way the curriculum is set up in the first place. Like, before Atlas, my only experience in programming was having a Fedora 17 dual boot when I was 14. And before that, between then and going to Holberton a couple of years ago, I hadn't programmed at all. And now I feel confident in saying, like, if you ask me to build a game, I could get it done in a few months.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little bit.
Yeah, I would say so.
What do you guys say the best and the worst parts of Atlas would
be? The community and the connections you make, because Atlas has done a lot of work on getting connected with businesses and charities and organizations in Tulsa. They're partnered with George Kaiser Family Foundation, I think that's the name of it. And so, like, they're very well connected, and so you have a lot of opportunity to, like, meet people, try and find jobs and things like that. And it does legitimately teach you, I mean, it taught me how to think about problems differently, which has been a huge help for me, not just in programming, but everywhere. And I would say that's like a big upside of it. But I think probably the downside would have to be the lack of structure for me personally.
I think that's well said, actually. Like sometimes it's good that they're lax because everyone will have different schedules. They have jobs, they have kids, they live far away. But like sometimes lack of structure can make it difficult to like. It just feels like kind of detached from the school, if that makes any sense.
That is actually a good point you've made. Is that there are definitely times like outside of going to the like mandatory attendance once a week, it's like you are kind of just on your own through the rest of the week unless you make the effort to talk to and reach out to other students. It is very much just like hands off. It even sometimes feels weird to say that I'm in school because of how the schedule is. It's like it seems like I'm never working on schoolwork, but I still get it done and I just have weird hours. And yeah, it
That's good. So if you had like a full-time job, you'd still be able to go to school without having to call in once a week to make class dates or anything like that,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, I have my work. I do work a full-time job and I do have my schedule set up that I don't work the 1 day a week that we have to be on campus. But I will say that when you're working on, like when you're in like the thick of projects, it can be very hard to find time like between 40 hours a week at a job and some projects it says like you should be devoting like 30 hours a week to. I've had projects where it says 70 hours a week
Oh,
too.
geez.
So like it really depends on the scope of the project, how difficult it is, what they're asking you to do. But there are definitely some weeks where between working a full-time job and Atlas, like I don't even have time to sleep or eat.
Yeah, Robin can attest to that. It's just school in general.
Nursing school is a monster in itself. Okay.
My mom's a pediatric nurse.
Yeah.
She went to school when I was 3 to 4. I
Never got to
remember.
play hooky, did you?
Huh?
Never got to play hooky.
I didn't know.
So I know you said that you were interested in learning about Unity. Do you have any questions about it?
Um,
No, we talked a little bit about some games
yeah,
that we made.
I guess I wouldn't know where to start. I guess the question I would ask is why use Unity over other engines?
That's a great place to start, actually. Yeah. Let's see. You got an array of different engines, right? And I'll list 4 out right now because when I did the research, whenever I was first picking apart different types of engines, we got 4 kind of major-ish players. Um, we got some specialized, very very specialized engines like RPG Maker. If you wanted to make a 2D RPG game, you can make it in hours with RPG Maker. It's very straightforward, but it's also very limited. You know, you're not going to create a VR game in RPG Maker because literally it's just it's a top-down always, and the controls are already inputted. You know, there's lots of stuff kind of like that, um, but they're all very specialized. I know that RPG Maker is a good example of that. Very easy to make that one particular type of game in. But most of the time, you can also kind of tell, like, oh, that's an RPG Maker game. If you've ever worked in it, man, I'll get into that in a little bit, but that style is kind of stuck there. Then you have things like Godot and Game Maker. Those engines specialize in 2D development. So if you were developing a game and you never want to branch into 3D or anything like that, that's probably a really good place to be at and start at and stuff like that. I know they have different coding languages. Some require more coding than others. Godot is open engine right now, and it's been going a long way since its initiation, and gets better every day. But it is open source, so you have to download modulets and stuff. You know, the base version might not be all you're expecting. And I don't know much about Game Maker, but we do have a few people who work on it. We have Elliot who works at Game Maker. He's really experienced in it. He made lots of 2D games in that engine. Then you have Unity. It's kind of like the jack of all trades. You can't make 2D games in it. You can make 3D games in it. He's making VR games in it. I'm making a 2D game in it right now, but I've made a VR game and I've made a 2.5D game where it's like 3D, but it's like a 2D thing. And I've made a 3D game in it before. And yeah, you can switch around. It has lots of functionalities in which I like, including it's kind of modular as well. You can include stuff in it from other parts. And you can, there's an asset store, and you can buy lots of stuff off the asset store to completely revamp your entire Unity experience. One of my favorite ones was a tile map generator that I just literally inputted some stuff in, and then boom, it generates a 3D tile map for me, and it had lots of different specializations. You have to buy those usually.
So it sounds like the main
How generalized it is, yeah, and how accessible and how varied it is. Like with Unity right now, I can.
Take a walk, yeah.
sitting so still.
Or another really good thing about it is how easy it is to port everything. So with one click, I can import to Windows, Mac, and Linux. Right, instantly, right there. It's playable in all three of those engines. One click by default. Then you can install the free modlets whenever you're starting up an engine. Like I always include the Android modlet, so if I can instantly just export my stuff to Android if I ever want to. Of course, it has to have the functionality for Android in it, but it'd be playable on Android the moment I download it. You know, and lots of other stuff. It's a very rounded engine, but I wouldn't say it's the best at anything other than being a rounded engine. Then you have Unreal. It's a really big game player in the game. You know, Daniel specializes in that, and a lot of other people in the group as well. Maybe not as much as Unity here in Tulsa, but definitely a good amount of people use Unreal here. If you wanted to make a 3D game and only 3D games, I would say Unreal is the best place to go. You can kind of make 2D games in Unreal, but with every update they make, they drift farther and farther away from that functionality. And then the style, you can never know if a game's made in Unity because of how different the styles are from game to game, and they don't require the splash screen anymore for free. So you never know. You're like, is that a Unity game? I don't know.
I will say though, as soon as Palea and Pal World dropped, I was like, those are Unreal games.
Yes, Unreal, however, yes, you can tell it's an Unreal game. Yeah, if you have some of the experience in Unreal, or I've seen so many Unreal asset packs, I can be like, yeah, that's an asset flip Unreal game.
Yep.
Like I've seen those in the asset store, sometimes um, in the Unity store too. There are some Unity games you can tell it's asset flips, but with Unreal having such high standards for the way it looks, most of the time their assets are have to be bought so that it makes it look coherent. Because Unreal tries to make their games look as beautiful as they can, so having objects that are low poly count very much stick out. So they use a lot of free assets. But no, they're all extremely well engines, and you can make a game with anything. Roller Coaster Tycoon was made straight out of like not even an engine, just code.
It was assembly.
Assembly, yes.
It was programmed
A
in
professor.
assembly. Programmed in assembly, so it ran on anything.
Yeah. Programming assembly. Yeah. Yeah. You realize how daunting of a task that was. It's crazy. Is Professor Akram?
Yeah, so I'm trying to remember to put this in the Discord. But this week, Ted Cohen, who's a music producer, is giving a series of talks on campus, and some of them are open to the public. But he's very much a embracer of technology, and so he's done a lot of talks on like the future of like AI and music and how that works. So if any of you are interested, I'll put it in the Discord when he's giving his public talks. I think there's one tomorrow. Yes, there's one tomorrow night at 101 Archer.
Okay.
So if any of you are interested in that, I'll put it in the Discord.
You want to introduce yourself, Professor Akram, very quick?
Sure. Everybody knows me, right? So yeah, I'm Professor Akram. I teach the computer simulation and classes. I had some students that night, so I just got done today. But we teach Unity here. We also do Unreal, but C Sharp's easier for students.
It's such a nice language.
Yeah.
I love C Sharp.
But yeah, have any played this visual scripting inside Unity?
I have not. ventured that far yet.
Yeah, it's sad. Yeah. I mean, it's good, but like I was going through our freshman class, they may or may not have had any programming. So we wanted to bring them on a jump start. So we went through Visual Studio and I did all this stuff and I'm like, and here's how you do it in C# in like 3 minutes. So this is why I don't like but it's not bad. You can do Visual Studio. What was the topic today?
We didn't have a topic today, but if we had some people coming, I was going to talk about um, optimization and such.
Oh, that's good.
But these guys are here from Altus. He's kind of a web designer, more or less, and he's a VR. And so I would be throwing it at a wall if I was talking optimization to a VR specialist.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's the other major player here in Tulsa. Here she helps arrange lots of events, and this is also used to be her meetings and stuff.
Okay.
But she lives a very busy life now, so
Sure.
I offered to help out and take over the meetings and assist with her and stuff. But yeah, she also used to host CSGC up until this year. If you're in Discord, you saw that.
Yeah, I
Sad
did.
message. But she also helped host. She also hosted the game jam here that was here last month as well.
Cool.
Anyway, where were we? Oh yeah, different engines and stuff. Yeah.
I guess the next question I would add is Unity typically used as like a stepping stone to other programs, like more complex ones?
No, you can end your entire development through Unity. Like I'm still learning it. I would say I'm closer to advanced, but I'm like in between intermediate and advanced, I suppose. There's lots of tutorials you can go through, and you know, whenever I click on an intermediate or advanced course, I'm like, okay, I already know most of this. That's where I like to think I'm at, but I can say I'm far from mastering it. They have lots of advanced programs inside Unity. I don't know if you've touched this or not, but there's Unity Dots, there's Unity Jobs, and both of those are extreme optimization tools because
Heard of dots. I've not heard of jobs.
Jobs allows you to run multiple functions at once. So it the research I've done on it, you're pretty much running your script at 10 times speed or something like that. I've tried implementing it, but I came up with flags and the documentation wasn't very clear on it. So I'm like, I'm just going to run it regularly. I don't think my 2D game needs to run at this speed. And then thoughts, I was messing with for a while too, but also didn't quite get to touch on it. Almost got it. But yeah, it just optimizes craziness. Have you guys heard of what is it called? Battle simulator or something like that?
Totally accurate battle simulator.
No. It's close. It's kind of like that. But this game is known for it. They just released their second game, and they're known for having over 1 million units on screen at once using Unity Dots.
Jeez.
All of Ultimate Battle Simulator, yeah.
Okay.
You probably if you go on some meme sites, you've probably seen some where like 5 Bowsers versus 1 million Goombas or something like that. Because you can mod the game pretty easily, and they're just fighting off. But yeah, that's run through Unity and using Unity Dots in their second version, so it allows them to have millions of units on screen all fighting each other. It's crazy to see. So no, I'd say it can be an in-stage platform. You can devote your time life to it, and you can create some pretty crazy games with it.
I would say too, there,
Okay.
like as far as stuff.
You here for the tools for video game developers?
Yeah.
All right, have a seat. It is being recorded, so it's being streamed. We're trying to expand our records here.
I would say, like, as far as game engines go, the one thing that Unity does, like, I would say fairly well that a lot of other engines either haven't put the work into or, like, they're just not built for it is the VR and AR stuff.
Yeah.
It's like there's crazy amounts of support for literally every VR headset on the market, and like AR support to do augmented reality stuff on mobile devices, and like while Unreal has a little bit of VR stuff, from what I have been told, it's like Unity has really become the place to develop like AR and VR apps or games.
Yeah.
Unreal in general seems just like too heavy for that stuff most of the time anyway. Like you just load into a Unreal project and by default it already has like all the highest graphics settings
Unreal
enabled.
is like very much set up to be like very pretty looking.
For
Like
sure.
even their like cartoony games are still like they look gorgeous. Everything they
True.
almost
It
everything
looks
I've
good.
seen- yeah,
Yeah.
almost everything that I've seen made in Unreal is just very very nice to look at.
Right, right. It just doesn't bode very well for people that want to make VR. At least not out of the box now, obviously. If you know what you're doing, know how to optimize, know how to tweak it, then it's okay. But
Yeah.
I do think that as far as an experience where you can just like load it into the software and just sort of drag and drop a VR space, hit the play button, you're just in there. I mean, like Unity definitely takes the cake on that.
Oh yeah.
That's me.
Oh yeah, definitely.
The most streamlined process.
Agreed.
I'm sorry, we skipped your introduction.
Oh, I'm Dylan. I've been a Unity game developer for about that's like 5 years now, and I made a game called uh, Baculus. It's about a
Is it the vacuum cleaner game?
yes.
Oh
That's the
yeah, I
one.
saw that the other day.
Oh yeah.
It looks
So
great. Is it finished?
thank you. No, it's still being worked on.
Okay. I thought you said you made it again. I was like, oh, it's already out.
Yeah.
I just saw the trailer.
Well, I put out the demo and it did really well. It's mostly just getting the full version, which I'm sure we all know how much of a grind that can be. Just getting a full finished game across the finish line.
Yes.
So
What
yeah.
stage of development would you say you're at, like a scale of 1 to 10?
I would say probably around like a 7 or 8. It's mostly just like content at this point. It's like most of the game development, game mechanic stuff is there. It's mostly just kind of filling in the last of the content that needs to be done, and that also just takes a while. And since it's been in the making for like 4 or 5 years, I'm sure another thing that you guys can probably relate to is that like when you have a project going that long, it's like you have periods where it's like, well, I want to do game dev, but I really don't want to work on those right now. So then you switch to go to to something new that sounds fresh, and then once you have your fill of that, it's like, all right, back to this. So 5 years later, we're still working on it, but still making progress. So here's hoping sometime soon.
No, I get you. I'm at this stage of my game too. I call it the content explosion phase. You got all the mechanics in, and now it's the easiest point to just drag stuff in. Because if you did that earlier, you change one script. It's like a building or something like that. Now you're like, okay, I want a building to do this new thing. You're gonna have to go through all 10 of those buildings and make sure that it does this or something slightly different to that. But on my content explosion phase, I call it, you're just making an item and putting it in there, fixing all that stuff up. But after that, it's beta testing, and that's one of the drags.
Beta testing.
Playing the game.
Can't wait for it. Can't wait to get there. It's gonna be a blast.
Playing the game over and over and over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah. And then hiring people to try and play your game over and over and over and over, and so they can find all the stuff that you were like, where did you find this? I played this game a million times. This bug never came up,
Yeah.
Or your friends playing it and they run into something. Or the best thing is when a popular YouTuber is playing your game and they find they run into some crazy game-breaking stuff that you've never even encountered before. It's like, wow, I have 400 hours in this game. Where did this bug, why didn't I get this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Talking about YouTube perception, stuff like that, that's always very tricky. Every game I release, I've always had like one YouTuber that I've never even heard of before just play it. I guess they're just browsing like, oh, what games came out today? And the VR horror game I made is very atmospheric, so it's very slow, but it's tense and it builds. And this guy played it and he launched into it and he moved around. And he only played for about 15 minutes. and that's when stuff really starts to pick up. But I guess he found like this spider head creature thing that crawls around the ceilings, and it's literally designed that if you shine a flashlight on it or something like that, it doesn't move; it stays there. Um, but he found it, and then he came back to it, and it's in the relatively same spot. And then he was like, "Okay, might as well kill myself." And he walks underneath it, and then in his review, he said the monsters don't move. He was like, darn, he didn't actually encounter anything fun. He just found this rat monster.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll do it.
I remember testing that game.
Yeah, you remember your friend who played it? And,
Oh, Sarah?
yeah, she was freaking out. She was like, fight or flight, fight or flight. It was like the version 0.1. I just had
She
like
screamed bloody murder in our apartment like 10 times.
all it was like a hallway with like doors and then like one monster that occasionally spawn and just kind of walk around.
What's this game called?
Oh, this was my first game I made a few years ago. It's called Forsaken. It's like a VR game. Needless that I didn't know that I didn't port it correctly, so it was only available on Oculus, and I only sold it on Steam. So it was an Oculus game on Steam.
Ooh, that's a narrow market you're after.
Yeah, I made some pennies. Oculus never got back to me when I tried submitting it. So,
Dang.
yeah.
Well, so do we all have ongoing projects here?
I don't have anything going on right now. I'm starting an AR project on Thursday for
Oh,
school.
fun. That's cool.
Yeah,
You right there? Anything?
No big project for me, just like, I'm more of a full stack web developer, so I'm more like backend stuff.
Okay, got you.
So I'm kind of new to the whole Unity. I've never opened up this programming one, but
Okay, all
I was
right.
curious to learn about it.
Yeah. Well, good for you.
I guess we'll go through our introductions here. We can start off with you since you were already speaking. So you go to Atlas.
Yeah, I go to Atlas. My name is Cameron Rosenthal. Before I went to Atlas, I was a graphic designer, but I was let off my job because I feel like I wasn't able to fulfill their what they wanted of me, like, and they found someone better. So, and honestly, like with AI art becoming so common nowadays, I was like, does that make me as a graphic designer obsolete? Like, because like you could just type in something and well, it definitely hurt it, and I was like, I should focus on building more skills. And there was a place called Holberton, which is now called Atlas, but before it was Holberton, and they were like, hey, we let people learn coding here. So I was like, I'll give that a shot. I went to one of their meetings, and I'm on my fourth semester now.
Yeah, good for you, man.
Thank you.
Adam. Yes, I'm also a student at Atlas. I also started when it was still called Holberton, but I'm doing their AR VR track. Before I started there in 2021, I really had next to zero programming experience, so it's been quite the ride going from Bash, Linux, and C scripting to making video games and VR apps in Unity. It's pretty cool.
Sure.
The first project they had us do in Unity was like kind of like what you were talking about, like 2.5D. It's a top-down maze game, but like it was all built in 3D, but the camera was locked to the player character, sort of like Pac-Man a little bit. But yeah, that's kind of where I am. I'm working in telecom right now. I'll probably be there until I graduate, until I find something better that's actually in programming. But yeah.
Before I got into game programming, my background actually was 2D animation. So I was a 2D hand animator.
That explains why in the first part of the trailer, it looks like hand-drawn animation.
There you go, exactly. So I did that for the better part of maybe about 10 years. Not professionally, that was sort of what I was working on. I was just doing customer service crap and during the day. But basically I just I don't know, I got to some point where I wanted to make a game, and I thought that I could never code in 1,000 years. I was like, sounds really complicated. I kind of fumbled my way through high school. I wasn't a very smart kid, so I was like, I'm never going to be able to do it. But I sat down one day and I was like, I want to get like I made a menu screen, and I was like, I want to get this to work. So I did a YouTube tutorial. Brackies,
Yeah.
you know me, love him.
Love that guy.
And yeah, no, he's the best. God rest his soul.
I know.
And you know, I made it work, or I made like a small menu work with Unity. I was like, well, that was fun. That's probably as far as I'll go. But then like the next day, I just kind of felt this yearning inside, you know. And I was like, okay, I think I'm gonna try something else. And then, you know, sure enough, um, over the course of the next year, I uh, I was just programming nonstop. It took over my life. You know, I'm an artist. Like, you know, like I always thought that I was going to live and die an artist that draws with his hands. I put that aside for like 6 months and just went all in programming. Is it, you know, it's just, you know, it was a new passion. And then the pandemic hit. And so I decided during that whole time, which was like, what, 5 months of not having a job, being paid unemployment, having all the time in the world and, you know, no work for the foreseeable future because my work had shut down due to COVID. So I worked like 16 hours a day. That's when I got the Vaculus demo done, basically. It was over the course of about 3 months of like hardcore grind because I just had all that time. And sure enough, here we are. All this time later, it was about 4 or 5 months of development on that. And I mean, I say all that because that actually led, that portfolio and that game basically led to me getting an actual job in the industry. So I was able to kind of leave customer service and I actually got a job working for a company in Arizona as a lead game developer. So I oversee a team and we're making a game together for that company and things are sweet. Is that all? Yeah. Thank you.
Robin?
I don't do anything programming, but I'm trying my hand at like 2D art, pixel art.
There you go.
I love pixel art. It's fun.
It is fun.
It
It's a
can,
little overwhelming right now.
it can be. You just got to start with little sprites.
But yeah, I'm doing like 16 by 16 right now.
Nice.
That's fun.
She's almost finished with
I
the
can
tutorial
imagine.
series.
I imagine that could be a very big task.
What's
Like,
that? It
Like-
can. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So, you're making sprites for a video game right now, or just?
I'm just like trying my hand at like drawing and
Oh,
pixel art.
She's got a great tutorial series I bought for the Udemy.
There you go. That's fun.
Usually it's such a good resource.
It is. That's where I started off as.
Just kind of trying a new hobby, kind of.
She's good at it. She was actually the artist from the game jam last month.
It's alright. I'm alright.
And I've been in video game development for Unity for since like 2018-ish. So around here.
Yeah.
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 Started off with, I've always known I wanted to do it. Started off with some YouTube tutorials and Udemy tutorials. Spent like almost a year ago just going through different ones. Getting them over again in my free time. And then I got a job that allows me to work on my game between calls. And so that led me a lot more time to develop the games.
That's how you do it, man. You get a job that allows you to work while you're at work. That's
Yeah.
the best. That's the best.
That's pretty much what I'm doing right now. Because I'm working weekends. There's nothing happening on weekends.
Let's go.
Yeah, I was wondering like, oh, what should I do? But I look at my coworkers and they're all just watching like football and TV shows and movies and like, oh, okay, well, you're not gonna make much money here. I don't know if you're gonna retire, bro. But
Yeah.
I'm trying my hand at this. Been doing it for a while. Yeah. Haven't made $1 million yet. I'm on my way.
Soon, dude. It's coming.
We're all on the way.
Yeah, we're all gonna make $1 million someday. We'll probably just do the inflation, but still.
Accurate. So accurate.
So yeah, you guys have experience in Unity. You guys asked some questions about it. We talked about different game engines, and then we talked about were talking about. What
What was the main appeal of
what was
Unity?
the main appeal?
And is it like a stepping stone for other engines?
Yeah, we just got done with that. Any more questions, or do you feel like that one wasn't finished already?
I can't think of anything right now. I can, maybe someone else has some more questions?
What was the question?
He was talking. Hi. Right, we're here for the Unity game developers. If you're here to join that. All right. I think she was participating in the Tulsa Game Dev. I think I remember what the game she worked on. Yeah, he was asking about.
My first question was like, what's the main appeal of Unity over other engines? And the answer was like mainly how accessible and open it is.
Definitely. Having tried a handful of them, a handful of game engines, I think Unity's strength is, it, especially when you compare it to Unreal, it's definitely, I would describe it as like an open canvas engine because you get in, and some people would describe this as something that is as a bad thing, but I really like it, the fact that you can open a new Unity project and you basically like have free it's a canvas in the way that it gives you free reign to basically make anything you want how you want to make it. You basically have full control over the way all the internal systems are set up. You don't have to jump through any specific hoops as opposed to Unreal, where Unreal is set up where you have to jump through their specific hoops that they set up. It's like, yes, they have pre-implemented first-person controllers and all of this pre-built stuff. But in order to access it, you have to jump through all these, you have to select your game in very specific ways. You have to find stuff in very specific menus and set them up there. As opposed with Unity, it's just kind of like, it's basically just this empty canvas of like, especially if you love systems design and you love to sort of set up your own code base in the way that you want it to function and like all of that. I think, at least for me, that's one of Unity's, that's one of its big strengths. It's just like, it allows you to make what you want, how you want to make it, which seems kind of like, it's like, well, aren't they all like that? But they aren't. Like having tried several game engines, some of them, are kind of like you have full control. Others or or other ones are like, if you want full control, that's cool, but you're going to have to jump through all these hoops, and even then, you're still going to have to jump through our hoops that we set up for you to go, depending on however you want to do it. So that's for me. That's one thing I really like about Unity, and I think it offers a lot of value to someone that likes full creative control.
I think another big strength it has too is the fact that it's based in C#.
Yes.
Like
100%.
I've programmed in C, Bash, Python, JavaScript, like so many different kinds of languages and frameworks, and like of the object-oriented languages that I have had to build stuff in, C# is by far and away like the most user-friendly, but also like the most readable to me. I find like I like pick up C# so much faster than any other language I've touched. And I don't know if other people have had that same experience, but I feel like C# is a very like accessible programming language.
For sure. Well, I mean, people don't even fully get it. In fact, I've talked to people who, have been doing C++ and Unreal for several years, and even then are like, I'm like asking them like, so if I use like this syntax, how does that work? And I'll send them a screenshot, and they're like, I don't actually know how that one works. There's just so much there's like so much to it. It's a lot more. I don't know. I fully agree. C#, like it's the most powerful and the most like human readable at the same time. Like it has those two like aspects to it. I think that makes it into a very powerful language as opposed to, for instance, GD script. I made a small game in Godot, and although it was very easy to pick up, GDScript is, it lacked a lot of features that you didn't think that you would even miss from like you wouldn't even think of as features of a coding language, but it lacked a lot of stuff that C# has, and it made me kind of drop Godot for now. I was like, well, you aren't really ready, like it needs more features. So C# is powerful. I'm into it.
Doesn't Unreal use like, it uses like a visual scripting, like node-based scripting, right?
It's called Blueprints.
Blueprint.
And you have to like visual scripting in order to use that, which I do.
I've never opened Unreal, so I've never actually like played with it myself, but I've heard people talk about it. And like, it's, in theory, it sounds awesome.
Mhm.
And then like when I actually look at it, I'm like, this is a
yeah. It is a mess.
nightmare to look at.
It is. I mean, honestly, looking at it is intimidating.
Yeah.
I feel like more, obviously I'm biased, but I feel like it's more intimidating than it is looking at a new Unity project. So
Yeah, I feel like it's like taking like the Unity animator controller and just dialing it up to 11. It even like looks similar.
yeah, well, I mean, exactly. And having messed with it, what I dislike about it is that, okay, for example, I had code that I had functioning in Unity with 2 lines of code. It was 2 lines of code, and in each line there was a couple method calls, and just a couple like they were pretty simple lines of code is what I'm saying. To recreate that in Unreal, like it went from 2 very pleasing organized lines of code to just spaghetti. Like it turned into spaghetti real fast, and just like nodes everywhere. The wires going from each node to node doing this like crazy. And it was just like, I don't know. I guess like it's fair to say that out of C# I get sort of that. It's like you look at some clean code that you just made, and it's like nicely organized, and you have it condensed, and it's just nice, and you enjoy looking at it. You're like, I accomplished something today, right? But then you go to Unreal and do that same thing. You don't get that same feeling. You feel like it's a messy room, but I guess it worked. Like it's that. It's really messy. And another thing I do not like. If some people like the visual scripting because they have an easier time comprehending it over text. Just the black void and text on it, sure. But I think that as for what I personally value and find fulfilling in programming, I am all in on text-based coding languages over the visual side of things, because a lot of what I enjoy about the text-based stuff just kind of goes away. Like it just feels way more messy. But that's how you learn to code. Then that's all you know. And I don't know where I was going with that. But
I feel like Blueprints is limiting in that aspect. Because I know I sometimes get in a bad habit of having a controller script that's thousands of lines. I'm like, I can't imagine what this would look like in Unreal.
yeah,
I have so much things linking all over the place. It would literally be like miles long.
yeah, I have no doubt.
And although I haven't touched Blueprints before, I have technically touched visual scripting as my AI in my game, which is very robust AI, not in terms of like learning stuff, but just doing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It runs on a state machine.
Right.
I feel like it's a mixture between the two because it does transition all over the page. It's like literally like a brain because it goes flashing all over the place. It's really nice to see. But every time it flashes to something, it goes in the C#, and I have so many things that activate. Like, okay, it looks for all the available buildings and finds the ones that are this type, and it chooses one of those type based on those parameters, and then it sets the path to that, and then it goes to a different line where it goes and follows them around and stuff. So it's kind of like a mixture between the two, I guess. And how I picture using the animator is something other than animating. But I did that because I ran into too many Stack Overflows
Ah, yes. One too many of those.
Right. Luckily, with the animator, I can see where it fucks up. I'm like, okay, that's where it's at. But if it's Stack Overflows, it goes doo-doo-doo-doo, and it crashes.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, oh great.
I think we've all crashed Unity a handful of times.
Oh, yeah.
Those. Either like an open while loop, with no escape, or a Stack Overflow.
I had a character controller script that I had put together for a platformer, and it just did the weirdest stuff sometimes. It definitely crashed my game. It's crashed Unity a handful of times.
Yeah, although we've defended Unity so far, it is not a perfect engine.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I imagine like all of it far from it.
Yeah, the Unity animator runs some of this stuff. I found this bug that annoys me every time. But in the Unity animator, you know how you can set which stuff activates first. So you go from here and then it splits off in 5 different directions. It has an order, of which priority based on parameters and all this other stuff. Like you have like is moving as a parameter right there in the left side. It should go to the is moving thing. But sometimes it won't. Sometimes it'll be like third of a line down, and the two arrows that go out from that are higher priority, but they're not supposed to trigger. Sometimes just because it's top, it triggers. And it seems random, and every time I'm like, okay, I just drag this up in higher priority, and it fixes it. I'm like, okay, I don't know why it wasn't doing that before, but I encounter that so often with my state machine.
But and that's kind of the thing about you're talking about the animator, right? And like it's yeah, like so I have ran into a handful of like bugs from the animator in Unity, and it's always the most frustrating thing because the animator, like so many other core components in Unity, are completely shrouded in you can't open them up and view the code. Like there's no way of actually knowing what's happening like under the hood because they don't reveal that. Which I don't really know why. I think I've heard it's because like Unity has to keep some of their code secret when it comes because of licenses when it comes to other consoles. Like they have to keep some of their engines stuff secret. But the fact that that's a thing and like so much of the inner workings of Unity are completely shrouded in mystery, which is not the case with Unreal, mind you. All of Unreal's code is exposed. Same goes for Godot.
You know, it's open source. Yeah, you can.
Godot's open source, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's in terms of downsides of Unity that aren't worth praising. That's definitely one of those. So just like you have no way of knowing what's happening on the inside. Now I think they are making a new animator, and that new animator will likely have more exposed code. But yeah, the animator has been kind of a buggy mess in my experience.
Yeah, I definitely had one that same platformer project. Just so much issues getting just basic animations going, and that I had like a week to get all the animations put in, and I think I got like 2 working correctly. I was like, by the end of it, I was like, I do not like this system at all.
Yeah, it's a little cumbersome. It's less cumbersome than Unreal, but cumbersome. At least it's got that going for it. If I could present a question, what are your guys' outlook on Unity post the garbage fire that happened in September?
Yeah, I actually had an entire meeting about that because it was actually a pretty big meeting because a lot of people were like, "What's happening?"
Yeah, what are we gonna do?
I'm like, I had to break it down. I'm like, okay, it's not as bad as it looks. They just did a terrible job of presenting it.
Yes.
So there was a big thing where they were like, "Hey, we're going to charge for downloads." Right. You have to get like 1 million downloads on your game before it kicks in. But if you're smart about it, you upgrade the package after you reach like $200,000. And then you're like, okay, I might as well just upgrade the package because it'll start charging me for downloads. And then you have to reach $1 million and 1 million downloads before it starts taking money per download. And there's also anti-piracy stuff that wasn't clear beforehand, so They're like, what if some guy just undownloads and re-downloads the game over and over and over and over again?
Right, right.
And they're like, well, they'll know. It's obvious. But now they just like, it's self-reported. You have to self-report it. And I'm like, okay, then you're fixed.
Well, and on top of all that, that already sounds like a mess. But on top of all that, I mean, this was a price raise. So this is a price raise that affected everyone that used the engine and in some sort of professional capacity where they were paying for it. So you're already paying more. And the big kicker, the one that no one liked, the one that made it, like it made news, like national news about how much everyone hated, or like how crappy of a move this was that this was all retroactive. So this affected every Unity game since the beginning of time. Even though they used to have in like the clause of the terms of service in Unity saying, if you download this new version of Unity, you're only bound by the, like this clause, and like future versions of Unity can't undo this license agreement. But they took a dump all over that. And basically just came out of nowhere. They just dropped it, and everyone's like, what is this? So,
thankfully they backtracked that. But yeah,
yes.
I mean, the price raise was bad enough.
Exactly, right? But like already published Unity games, like how many talking about games that are not even that were currently in development at the time? It affected games that were already published years ago. Like suddenly you're bound to this new license that you did not agree to, and so that's what led to hundreds of studios that
Did
were.
they end up getting sued for that too? Or it got
Probably.
close, I thought. Because it was like,
I think since it wasn't actually published, because I was supposed to start in January or something like that. I don't think
Yeah, like it wasn't enacted yet, but they were planning on.
it took them like a week or two to backtrack everything.
Yeah, it took them way too long.
They said, yeah, I mean, in some aspects they stepped on it, but they should have probably talked to some people before releasing that fired up. Yeah.
I mean, apparently they did. Apparently, like the entire like everyone that knew about what was going on inside Unity, like heavily advised against it. Like, do not do this, and they just weren't listened to. So like the executives of Unity thought that they could just drop this. They're like, yeah, some people will get mad, but it'll be fine. And it wasn't fine. It was not fine. They lost so many people.
there was several indie studios that ditched using Unity as an engine entirely because of that announcement.
Yeah, they couldn't trust them anymore.
Yeah, there was a lot of studios that said that they just won't use Unity anymore because if they're willing to pull it once, they're willing to pull it again. And a lot of like smaller studios and indie developers who make their own games were really worried about how the monetization was going to work for them specifically. Because like, of course, if you're a large studio like Niantic who's making Pokemon Go, obviously you're getting thousands and thousands of downloads, thousands and thousands of dollars of revenue. You monetize your game, so you have the cash flow to actually pay for what Unity is trying to charge you for. But people who were smaller, who, if like an indie studio happens to have something that just goes viral, like, Lethal Company went viral. It's like, if a studio has a game that they maybe didn't have a license that they like covers more downloads, a lot of people were worried about like what would happen to them if a game popped off and then like they were getting hit with all these download fees. So yeah, a lot of smaller devs were very unhappy about the changes that Unity was making.
Yeah, I mean they screwed the pooch super hard, and basically, like what the fallout was, or what the end result of all this was that they walked the changes back and they introduced new changes that were actually pretty fair.
Yeah.
It was still a price raise, but it was like simple revenue share, where it was just like they asked for 20% or zero. No, it wasn't 20%. It was some number. I used to have it in my head, but some just an amount of your revenue, and it was not asking very much, and still asking less than a real engine. Yeah, exactly. Like it was pretty fair. And since then they have been doing damage control very, very hard. the John Rigatello, probably not how you pronounce his last name, but like I never learned. He was the CEO at the time that all this happened. He has since left Unity, forced to resign. Thank
The
God.
CEO, the guy?
The CEO, yeah.
Thank goodness, because I heard that he also worked at EA, and he was the one who sponsored the phrase "pay the player, make the players pay per reload."
Yeah.
Yep,
I mean,
that
he
was
had
good.
a terrible reputation as it was. So
Pay per reload, what does that mean?
He
It's a
literally
first-person shooter game. You pay like 50 cents every time you reload a gun.
Holy
he literally wanted to. He's like the kind of person who wants to monetize everything out of a game. Like
Yeah.
like he said, like if you want to reload your gun in the middle of a gunfight, you got to pay $5 kind of guy.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, but like the changes that they were making to the Unity engine, like up until those changes were going to be implemented, Unity was like not really making any money, as far as I understood. So this was kind of their effort to recoup what they saw as lost revenue, and it was a way like way overdue. Like it was
Like,
way too.
they made it far worse for themselves.
Yeah, I mean they effectively in the course of 24 hours tanked a decade's worth of good reputation.
Yeah.
Like it was bad. Like I who had only developed a handful of applications for school projects was like, I don't know if I want to use Unity for my school projects anymore.
Yeah. And as a result, after all that, people are kind of starting to come back. People are kind of starting to trust it again. Kind of like they have made some pretty solid moves. A lot of the stuff that they were getting criticized for back a couple of years ago, like they acquired Weta Digital, which was a special effects team. They acquired them for millions of dollars, and this team worked on movies. So it was like, why did they acquire this team that works only on movies? How is that going to contribute to game dev at all? And they did, they basically fired that whole team just recently, which is on one hand, that sucks for those people, and that sucks losing that they lost their job. But on the other hand, it does show their commitment that they are like trying to undo all the wrongs that they were doing the last several years. No one knows. No, like they had some kind of explanation for it, but it didn't really add up, and they were just like, "Why did you guys do this?" Like, they were making a lot of weird purchases.
I think there was a few months before the whole like revenue split thing happened last September. They had also acquired or announced a partnership with another company who in the past was known for serving software that was spyware.
Yeah.
And like active malware. And like from the reading that I did when that was all happening, the company that they partnered with like has made an effort since they had that reputation to move away from delivering malware to people and actually vetting the software that they launch to users. But that was like another like kind of dark spot on Unity's reputation that happened was that last year or a year before? I can't remember, and I can't even remember the name of the company.
I know
But
what you're talking about.
yeah, but it was
They hired them on for like phone advertisements.
yeah, it was I can't remember.
It was Iron Source.
Iron Source. Thank you. Yeah, Iron Source.
And the thing is that the CEOs, because basically everything with Unity went wrong when they went public, as is any company that goes public, And basically the CEOs of Iron Source basically bought their way up into the board of Unity, like the main, like they were making big decisions, and they were these crappy guys that just make, like their whole thing was just monetization, and let's monetize the crap out of everything. Let's track people in ways that maybe they don't really like being tracked. Let's do all these, they had a reputation of not good things. Another thing that Unity has done very recently is all of those people that did. It was like 2 guys from that company that were on the board of chairman in Unity. They have also resigned, and will be stepping down, I think, within like the next 6 months. So again, good track. Like keep it up, guys. Like I like this.
Back on the track.
Yeah, exactly. Just one thing at a time, you know. So like a lot of good news has come out, and it's made me, you know, it's kind of reinvigorated me a little bit, you know, because I was, you know, I know way too much about Unity. I was a Unity fanboy. I was like, even when like a part of the engine would like they just do like a little like update in one of the betas or the alphas, I'd go and look at it and see like what they changed, and I'd watch a bunch of videos on it, and I was so into it, and just kind of this Unity missionary type of person. I just love talking about trying to convert people over to Unity, talking about Unity. But after that happened, I mean, that was a real, you know, after the whole price change, and now the whole world hates them, like that was hard. Like I was like, well, that serves me right for getting way too into a company and like their product, you know, because it's like
Idolizing corporations.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, okay, maybe I should do less of that. But you know, I'm starting to come back around on it. Not at the level that I was, but you know, I really do love Unity. I love the engine, and it's obvious that even though the people up top, when it comes to Unity, are like any other suits, they are, you know, money focused and greedy a lot of the time. The people that actually make Unity, the people that are, you know, on the front lines, like developing the engine, they are very passionate about the engine, and they're making a product that, you know, they love, you know, and you can really feel that too, because I follow a lot of the internal developers of Unity on social media, and you know, they were just as blindsided and very upset about those changes as the rest of the world was when it happened. They were like, where did this come from? You know, so knowing that Unity itself is made by passionate people that want to make a really cool thing, that makes me like it more too, you know.
I think the only problem is like people like on the outside don't know what's going on the inside. They won't care. The ground people don't like it either.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of people just did not know what was going on, and they just saw the price per downloads, and that.
Yeah.
That sort of stuff.
Well, I mean, it still has a trash reputation to most people, like in terms of people outside of the game dev sphere that aren't like us, that weren't already in the Unity sphere pretty deeply when all this happened, and we're still kind of in there. Like everyone else, especially non-game devs, Unity has not healed the reputation at all to them. So,
Well, and I think like overall, the like non-development crowd who knows a little bit more about game development than your average gamer, probably just from exposure will like Unreal more just from the jump. They're used to, you know, they're used to Unreal games. They've seen Unreal going back to Gears of War and even older games. It's like they're used to seeing that Unreal U at like launching in game, like at the beginning. And so I feel like just the average, well, not, I wouldn't even really say that the average gaming crowd, but the gaming crowd that knows just a little bit more than the average person is like knows more about and is more exposed to Unreal.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's totally fair to say like the developers, as well as the consumers, like, I should say, you know, Unity helped all of their competitors. They gave them all such a huge boost in every sense of the word. Especially, you know, like there was a lot of engines that like people just became aware of after what Unity did. You know, people like there was a lot of engines I never heard of, but they've been in the making for years, like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years. Godot I had heard of, and that's when I decided to give it a try while that was going on. I think I lost my train of thought. Happens to the best of us. Oh, right. Like what Unity did caused such a massive like uproar where, you know, all these other engines started getting not only attention but donations and like just like so much of the Unity user base basically left and went to all these other places. A solid fraction of it. Um, um, Godot, I think, probably benefited the most from all this, but that and Unreal, which are basically Unity's two main competitors, right? Because Godot had donations from all around, like people were dropping hundreds of thousands of dollars on it, it's definitely the most worthy engine because it had been in the making for, like 15 years at this point. It's been in the making a long time. Yeah, it's totally open source. It's like, I think that's why people like it so much, because it's like a company can't do what they can do to Unreal still, and what they did to Unity, where just a company comes out of nowhere and is like, let's destroy everything,
Let's tank our reputation.
Exactly, for the lulz. And Godot, and all these other engines, they benefited hugely. And not even to speak of all the free press, all the free developers that went to Unreal, and that was the best thing. That was like a Christmas present for for Epic Games. They got just a huge swath of people, but us here that are still left on the Unity side, I hope that the engine can actually start to, first of all, become profitable, because the reason why they did that in the first place wasn't out of greed. It was because Unity hasn't made money in years.
Yeah.
It has been a money sink.
I was waiting to bring that up. Yeah, Unity on the GameDev side has not been profitable.
Yeah.
They have been a little bit profitable on their ads, however, but obviously everyone's profitable with ads.
Yeah, true.
But they were trying to get some money off of the actual game dev side, just like D&D. D&D hasn't been profitable in a long time, but they're trying to make that profitable by doing all of this other scummier stuff and selling all of this stuff online and charging people for the online existence, and all the good stuff we love to grow up with is just not super profitable.
Yeah.
Uber's not profitable. Tinder is not profitable, from what I heard. They've always lost money.
The only thing that I know Tinder you pay for is like their premium dating.
Tinder Gold.
Yeah, so that's why they rigged the systems to make it more favorable for them and all this other stuff. I do have the last update that they did. It's two thresholds. You have to make $1 million within 12 months, so a year, and you have to have 1 million downloads for any of this to kick in, right? And then whenever it does kick in, they will charge 2.5% of your monthly gross revenue,
5%.
which is still far below. Is it like 5 or 4 for
5% is Unreal.
Yeah, so it's like half of Unreal, or the runtime fee based on your monthly initial engagements. But this is whichever is lower, so it maxes out at 2.5%.
Yes. Which I think is totally fair. We should have done that first place.
Yeah, this new model that they moved to is like you said, it's half what Unreal charges.
Yeah.
This was a good correction from what their initial proposal was.
Should have done that from the get-go, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously the other stuff, it only takes effect if you have the Unity update. You have the Unity version in which this kicks in, installed whenever you launch the game, or something like that. But you have to have that Unity version, so you can't be using like a super old version for this to kick in, because it won't. It's not going to charge you, and some other stuff. And obviously it's self-reported data, so they require you to self-report. Well, I'm not going to have 1 million downloads on any of my games ever.
Yeah. You say that.
No. That's a big. They're too far of a top, guys. They just want to make money off of Genshin Impact and Pokemon Go. That's all they want.
Which is totally fair, because those games make so much goddamn money, especially Genshin. That's just like a gotcha game with extra dressing on it. So
It's just a gotcha game at this point.
yeah.
And hell, you know what? I sell my game for $10 a piece. I make $10 million. Taking that 2.5%.
Exactly. That's not.
Screw it. Here you go. Thanks, you.
That's not asking too much. And I think they did that because there's a lot of people that are making, especially in the mobile market. They're bringing in millions of dollars, and Unity was only getting their base, like $30 a month for Unity Plus or whatever. And I guess they just decided we're not doing that anymore. Which is fair, but they should have done this from the get-go. Oh, and the important part about these new changes was that they are not retroactive. They, they basically did declare that, we're still changing our policies to this new one that we have now completely redone to where people don't hate us anymore and don't hate it. But and additionally, it's not retroactive anymore. If you, whatever license you publish your Unity game with, that's a license that you're going to be bound to. So that's what they stated. Everyone's hoping that they stay true to their word on that one.
Well, I mean, they saw the reaction the first time they messed up really bad. So unless they get a new CEO who has the memory of a goldfish, I don't think they're going to pull something like that again. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
There's some companies that do some things that that's just normal for them. Recently, YouTube has they have some sort of system where you can't use AdBlock, where if you watch free videos with AdBlock, then you just
They've actually been battling AdBlock.
Yeah,
That's a better way to phrase it.
They have been in a war with uBlock Origin for the better part of a year.
Yeah, because I have AdBlock, and that pops up, and then AdBlock updates, and no longer
I'll open my browser, I'll go to YouTube, I'll get an ad, I'll close my browser and open it back up and pull up the same YouTube video, and then I don't get an ad. But the YouTube started doing, they started putting in an intentional lag on accessing the website if they detected you were using an ad blocker. But there has been certain privacy concerns from people who are in like internet security and user security of it is really unethical for a large corporation to be monitoring the user's browser to the extent that it takes to detect that they're using ad block.
Yeah.
So
I think the point I was trying to make more was of course YouTube is doing this. Just
they
do so many scummy things over the years. It's not even like an outrage like the Unity thing was. I mean, don't get me wrong, people were talking about it, but were there any news outlets talking about it?
About the YouTube thing? I mean, Tech Radar and publications like that have talked about it, but there's very little within the tech space that makes it to big news. Even they don't even talk about iPhones coming out anymore. They talked about the Vision Pro, but no one's gave a crap about an iPhone or a Galaxy in 4 years. Tech just does not unless Elon Musk is in a rocket or Bezos is doing something insane or Zuckerberg is also doing something insane that tech does not get into the news.
They got sued again.
Yeah, unless a CEO is getting sued or did something really horrendous, they just don't talk about tech anymore.
Yeah, that's probably the only thing that popped up on the radar for news. All their stuff going on.
The only reason I knew that the iPhone 15 was coming out was because all of the crazy iPhone friends that I had.
Yeah, no, Google's gone crazy with that. So Robin and I were trying to watch a 10-minute video today, and every minute it'd be a 40-second ad. What the hell is this? I'm so glad I use AdBlock. Yeah.
Yeah, if you have Google AdSense turned off to where it's not customizing ads for you, you just get served the craziest, most random stuff.
BetterHelp, how did you detect that I need therapy?
I'd almost rather get BetterHelp ads than some of the ads that I get, which are for really weird looking animated movies that are not in English, and it's how did they even afford to buy this ad?
Some of them are mobile game apps.
Oh, so many.
Lots of mobile game
there's
apps.
a lot of sex and violence and
Yeah.
body humor.
Yeah. Yeah, like that ad where some chick's running up, and then she every time she passes this barrier, her booty gets bigger. And why is this an ad?
Yep.
You never click on those because they're not actually real games. But
Well, the funny thing is that sometimes they are real games, but it does not look anything like what is portrayed in
Yeah, I guess that was a better comparison. But yeah, it's crazy.
You said something,
About
I don't know.
Yeah, we've been jumping around a lot.
I was gonna say, just before we get too far with like Unity hasn't been profitable for years. You know, they have a solid model right in front of them that is working beautifully, which is Fortnite and Epic Games.
Mhm.
Fortnite is a money guzzler, you know, like it is making so much. And what Epic Games does is that they just, you know, they aren't trying to make like what they get from Unreal and the revenue share is kind of extra compared to what they get from Fortnite. So they have this game that they have made with their own engine that is now making them revenue, and then they turn around and invest it right back into the engine, right? And just like Epic Games in general, you know, they're a private company and they are profitable and they are doing well for themselves. Um, so, you know, when it comes to Unity, Unity needs a Fortnite. Like I hate to say it, Unity
No,
needs a Fortnite.
You're right. There's a big difference between like Epic Games and Unity as a company though. Like,
Very true.
whereas Epic Games was a game dev company who kind of just so happened to strike gold
Yeah.
when they developed the Unreal Engine and like brought it through.
And
Like,
Fortnite.
yeah, because they like Gears of War was like a showcase of their new engine, and then Fortnite came out, and they were like, this is like part a taste of what Unreal 4 can do.
Yeah.
And then like, you know, they have this like whole like portfolio of absurdly successful games that they've released that just so happen to use the engine that they also developed in-house.
Yeah.
Whereas Unity only makes Unity.
Right.
Like,
Well, and even like going back to Unreal, like the developer of the guy that is responsible for doing a lot of the programming for the early versions of Unreal back in the 2000s is still there. He's the
He's been
CEO.
there forever.
Tim Sweeney is the CEO, and he had a direct hand and is still directly working, like on the, you know, again on the front lines, as they keep saying, on the actual engine itself. Like he spent, you know, like I happen to know he spends a lot of time working on the engine itself.
Also really likes
You know, really?
I used to drive around. I'm actually from North Carolina originally.
Oh, really?
And Epic Games is based in Cary, which is the town right next to where I grew up in.
Yeah.
And I used to drive like kind of by the Epic Games like headquarters every now and again, and very frequently I would see someone like very high up in the company driving a McLaren P1 out of that parking lot up and down the strip.
I believe it though. I believe that. Yeah. Yeah, man.
No, I used to do like office coffee service, so I would be driving all over the city, like going to break rooms and stuff. And a lot of my clients just happened to be like in the Cary and North Raleigh area, where like all of the like IBM has headquarters in Raleigh, and a whole bunch of other tech companies have headquarters there. So it was like just kind of like I'd have all these clients that were all in the same area, and I remember just looking up one day and being like, like, what is that? And then I like pulled up my phone and I was like, that's Epic Games. I didn't even know they were based in Cary until I literally drove by it.
Wow. Yeah, I believe that. Yeah, man. Like, you can just tell that, like, yeah. I mean, basically exactly what you said. Like, Unity and Unreal come from very different backgrounds. You know, very different starts to these companies and very different histories. But you know, like, Unreal's doing well for themselves, and Unity needs to take a page out of their book. You know, because what they're doing so far ain't working.
Honestly, if Unity did something kind of to the extent of the Epic Game Store, but where it's all Unity games, like where they have like a storefront where they can showcase games that were made just in Unity and then take a percentage from that, I think that would probably be a pretty good way for them
Yeah, Unity has a weird thing of not wanting to show their face with their games. Like it's so easy to turn off the Unity splash screen. It's free
It
now,
is.
actually.
Yeah.
And like unless you look it up, I don't know which games are made with Unity besides the big bugs.
I literally did not know that Monster Hunter and Genshin were made in Unity until like a couple weeks ago.
Well, and I mean that was one of the most that was one of their most poor policies, I think, was, for example, if you were paying for any tier of Unity, if you were paying for any of the higher tiers, you were able to just turn off the splash screen. But if you were not paying for it, if you were using the free personal version of Unity, you had to have the Unity splash screen, which then led, a terrible idea, led to all of the Unity shovelware games that people were just pooping out. All of those had the made with Unity, and yet all of the good games that had tons of care and were made by giant studios and stuff, they turned that shit off, and that tells you like very simply why Unity again kind of has not the greatest rep when compared to Unreal, even before not even to speak of the revenue stuff, but even before then it was just like Unreal kind of just had this sort of they have this rep of like very good, very high quality games are made with them. Unreal is a AAA game engine, but yet Unity kind of had the shovelware kind of like indie,
Lots
like
of mobile games
lots of
made
mobile
are made
games.
in it, and
Exactly.
like I feel like mobile games have like that. Yeah, that's kind of the point. Is like every schmuck who had a computer that turned on could turn on Unity and make some sort of like gotcha money printer thing.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
like
Where it doesn't exist just to be like good games,
it just exists to be monetized.
yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it goes to show that like little decisions like that can have a pretty intense, like a real impact on like the reputation of the engine, which is why in the newest, in the version of Unity they're about to release that has all these new terms that we were talking about, they have allowed you to just turn it off even if you're paying for the free one. So now games, the shovelware games that are made with Unity, the money gotcha machines and all that, now they probably will turn it off as a result, because who wants, I don't think anyone wants, especially not right now, wants that at the beginning of their game.
I don't know. I'm going to contradict you on that one because I don't think they would update it to that version.
Oh yeah, true. That's so true.
That's
Yeah.
a good point.
Very good point. Yeah.
Yeah, they would just load up a version before that.
True that. Well, hopefully, maybe 5, 10 years down the line, if Unity is still around, hopefully it is, that its reputation will have changed a little bit, and the bigger games that are developed with it, can show through and can feel proud to have them made with Unity opening, but it's gonna be a while for me at that point, especially before there's any pride involved.
I mean, they've done a lot of good stuff too. Like, let's look at the schools here in the community. I don't see any schools here, at least in Tulsa, that teach Unreal.
True.
Atlas does not teach.
Yeah, we have Atlas, we have
All
TU
Unreal.
here. I think we have OSU might be teaching some game dev stuff. I always use Unity.
And I think that does kind of stem from the fact that like Unity did start as an open source project, right? Or I know that there was some more community driven roots to Unity than Unreal. Unreal being developed by a game development company. Like Unity was and has always kind of been like, this is the engine that anyone can get and make something.
Yeah.
Whereas Unreal was kind of, I don't know if Unreal is as approachable as Unity
Oh,
is.
it's not.
Yeah.
It's daunting just looking at it because you're like, how am I supposed to make a game with that good graphics?
Yeah.
And that's why I said earlier, like, you either have to have a really good 3D model for that kind of stuff, or you're using some bought assets.
Mhm.
So you kind of always know it's an Unreal game, even the crappier ones, because they all have the same art style.
Yeah.
They have to buy the same assets over and over again to make it look coherent.
Well, and the thing is too is like you can, like, Unity does give you the option like you can absolutely make a Unity game look like an Unreal game. Like the rendering pipeline and all of the graphics and lighting and all that stuff, the way it all works in Unity works just as good as it does in Unreal. Unreal does have some tricks as far as like in their most recent version in Unreal 5, they have worked out some wizardry that I don't really understand as far as like getting the maximum performance while also delivering like 4K graphics all the time. But like if you wanted to, you can make a Unity game look as good or better than an Unreal game if you wanted to. But I feel like it's more, it kind of comes down more to like Unity does tend to appeal to indie devs who don't really want to sit and develop a bunch of 4K assets and then have all of that running on someone else's machine. They'd rather have something that runs good on most things so that they can get it to as many people as possible.
Yeah, I remember when I was first starting out, all the Unity updates were like, look how beautiful this scenery looks. I'm like, I'm never going to touch that level of lighting. Nevertheless, the amount of poly counts in the scene. Like, bro, like, you're good. Like, I'm not here to compete with Unreal on my end, at least.
Yeah.
But you can, yeah. I mean, just like how you can technically create a 2D game in Unreal, you're just going to have to go through a lot of hoops, like you were saying, a lot of hoops.
A lot of hoops, and you're going to have to learn a lot. You're going to have to, like, you know, not only, because with, like, I think when it comes to Unity, the majority of the struggle is going to be learning C#. You know, it's like, you do have to spend some time learning Unity's API and Unity's, you know, like specifically how to use Unity, but I think a lot of, when it comes to learning it out of the box, a lot of it's just going to be learning that C#.
Yeah.
And, you know, when it comes to Unreal, it's like half of, you know, 75% of it's going to be learning, you know, how it works and how, and you know, they have just like so many switches everywhere of like, you know, all these hidden menus, all these different things that just make it a real maze, you know. And it's tough to navigate without tons of tutorials, without having your hand held, without being directly trained, you know, which was not the case with Unity. Because Unity, I was able to pick up, you know, honestly, a lot of it was just by playing around. You know, I just played around with it and just kind of figured out how stuff worked. On Unreal, I played around with it for a few days, you know, and this being having a few years worth of game deving experience like under my belt, and I had a hard time figuring out how to do freaking anything. Like anything.
Unity is very like, you can even get just like starter assets from the Unity that are free. You can literally just like go for free, add it to your whatever project you're working on, and then bam, you have something you can play, like literally like play for free. And it's like there's all these like pre-built assets you can use, and like it's very accessible in comparison.
Very accessible. Yeah. You know, and I think a lot of that is kind of where Unreal kind of has this reputation of like the AAA game dev engine for a reason. And it definitely feels like it when you open it, because it's like, oh, someone very, you know, if you were a new game developer, hadn't really, you know, got into that world yet, you'd look at everything in Unreal and be like, oh, wow, I have to be very smart in order to learn how to operate this. And I don't know, Unity doesn't really give, you know, at least to me, doesn't really give off that same impression. I mean, obviously I'm biased, but I was able to figure it out pretty quick, you know, having no experience with that sort of thing in the past. So I don't know, but I mean, I'm sure it's different strokes for different folks, but yeah, I think Unity lends itself better to the person that's just kind of playful, playing around, seeing what happens.
Hobbyist sort of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I hope that answered all your questions. Well, we can start wrapping up here. Are you guys in the Discord? I know you are. Obviously.
I am already in the Tulsa GameDev Discord.
All right.
I am not.
Yeah. You did it on Meetup, right? I think
Yeah.
there's a link in the Meetup description for the game dev. If not, I'll just put it in the comments of the meetup.
Okay.
Let me double check that really fast. So I'm not lying to you. And there's also a Unity meetup too, but we focus more on the Tulsa GameDevs. It's kind of the one, and that's where you can interact with everyone. You know, like you can interact with everyone, show your stuff off, meet with a lot of other video game developers, talk about their. If you ever have any troubles or stuff on something, you could shoot it out, and more often than not, you'll get almost the answer.
Sure. Yeah, the Tulsa GameDev Discord is like always.
I think I have that in here. Or like the invite to it.
Yeah, you found it?
Yeah.
Yep, yeah. Join our Discord is right there at the bottom of the about section. There you can find out all the other stuff associated with it.
Yeah, and all, this goes to everyone. As someone that, has a very deep understanding of Unity and stuff, like if you ever need, like, if you're ever just like, hey.
You might hear from me Friday.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, man.
I've got this AR slingshot project I have coming up really screwed me last time I did it.
Really?
Yeah.
AR is one, right? I don't have much experience, so I don't know about, there's so much I can say about the actual setting up AR part of things, but everything else, I'm here for you, buddy.
Yeah, you guys know Philip, he was at Atlas as well.
Philip.
Maybe
Sounds familiar, but there are a lot of people at Atlas.
Yeah.
Is he graduated or is he still at?
He's almost graduated as well.
Okay.
I know he's very, very soon. He's almost finished.
Is he? I'm assuming he's in the AR VR
I
track.
think so. Yeah.
I have to have met him before. I probably just don't know his name.
Probably. Really cool. Is that Steam Deck?
Yeah, I actually have.
Does your game work on Steam Deck?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we'll build. I didn't know how people were gonna be here. I didn't know, it was like, let's see what happens. But yeah, I've this here if anyone wants to try it try the build for funsies.
Yeah. I mean, we got 5 minutes. You can bust it out.
Okay.
The Unity, the Discord is also a really good way to find testers too. By the way.
True that. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like most people would just be like, yeah, man, I'll try your game, and if you want someone to play your game for hours, you probably have to pay them. But I like to help out with flow. There's lots of other people there that will be like, yeah, sure, we'll bust out your game, and then you get game developers who are testing your game, so you actually get good input as well. You'll be like, hey, some of this bug thing, this might be what's caused it. This is what I did to lead up to it. I'm like, thanks, you know exactly what I'm looking for. You're not that guy. Like, I think I'm spotted a couple. This might be this weird thing when I turn the corner or something.
Sounds like
You're not the best.
This is actually my first time meeting you.
Oh, really?
That's why I watch it whenever you play, so I know what's happening.
Oh.
So there's a giant vacuum alien monster that's in the house right now. He's coming for you. So yeah. Oh yeah. We've all been there.
Yeah, you should post your trailer in the Unity.
Oh, God, he's right there.
Oh,
Hide
in the closet.
Yeah,
Yeah, your little kid hasn't. What happened? Oh, okay. He went away, so you're free to exit.
How tricky was it to get it on the Steam Deck?
Actually, not very. It kind of works out of the box. As long as you turn on the compatibility layer that it has, because basically the Steam Deck, even though it runs on Linux, it has the Proton compatibility layer, which allows basically all Windows games to run, honestly, for the most part, without any issue. So some games do have issues.
Yeah, why are you on the way there?
This is pretty cool looking. I really like how the atmosphere of this all looks.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah, you can tell you've been working on it for a while.
Oh
The
yeah.
lighting is so nice looking.
Thank you so much.
A lot of bloom on it.
How much of it is baked?
It's actually all real time.
Oh,
And I did a lot of work to try and optimize it.
Oh, crap. Yep.
And this is where you get back in.
Oh.
Oh,
Oh, I got sucked.
you got sucked. That's what
You
happens, man.
were sucked up.
You were
That's
sucked
awesome.
up. Oh, thank you so much.
The only consistent way to get away from him will be chases to hide in a dark place. Cause over 100. Cool.
So it
Yeah.
looked like there was a little fight
Let's
scene
try.
whenever he first got you. Was there a way to escape him after he hits you?
So yes, so at the beginning of the game, you don't really have the ability to. If he touches you, that's the end. But as you progress, you gain the ability to hit some QTEs once per checkpoint, where you can actually kick him off and escape, and you get a second chance to
Oh,
save
that's
your life.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I was
cool.
about to bring up, like, oh, that might be a balance issue there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
If it's
Yeah.
too easy to get away from him, he's not a very scary monster at that point.
Yeah.
But no, it sounds like you thought that way through.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's only been 5 years. Well, thanks for checking it out, guys. I appreciate it. It works.
Yeah, man, it was great to have you guys.